These videos are really turning out to be a never-ending episode of The Justice System Sucks. Hi, my name is Sydney. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about men again. I've spoken a lot about the treatment of men in the various areas of the justice system. And I do that because I care. Also because I get to say things like, I object. I also feel like a lot of people can relate to just how unfair the justice system can be, particularly when it comes to family matters and men. So I want to talk about how people fabricate accusations of abuse in order to win custody disputes. Fabulous. Now recently, a very good friend of mine was dragged through the court system with issues relating to a custody battle, but also accusations of domestic violence. In court for a custody battle, then hit with domestic violence allegations. Gee, didn't see that coming. What fun! But it appears that this type of situation, where a husband or father is dragged into court by a vindictive ex-partner, is increasingly common. And disappointingly, but not unpredictably, it seems like nobody's really interested in addressing this and its ramifications. So we're gonna do that today. So for those of you who don't know, he is actually a very good friend of mine, but he's also a political commentator and activist in Australia. Now, a number of months ago, his ex-wife took out against him basically the equivalent of a restraining order, which in Australia we call an AVO, or an apprehended violence order. We like acronyms and never actually saying words in full. What can I say? And an AVO exists basically to protect people from other people. In doing so, he became unable to see or access his children at all. And a condition of the AVO meant that he couldn't publicly discuss his ex-wife, their children, the event, or any event surrounding him going to court. And importantly, if he did breach that condition, it could result in criminal charges. Because if you didn't already know, that's what justice looks like. So, to reiterate, for no good reason, lost access to his children, and the only way to get them back is by going to court. And at the same time, became completely unable to defend not only himself, but his public image. Because this is really what justice looks like. Now, during around a 6-month period where he hadn't seen or spoken to his children at all, plus the stress of court proceedings, plus the police breathing down his neck, he really hit rock bottom. Just really like a... Jokes aside, I do remember a phone call that made to me one evening where he basically said that life wasn't worth living and that he wanted to take his own life because it wasn't worth it if he couldn't see his kids. Honestly, that was a lot to hear from someone that I very much care about and really love. And I'm sure that there are a lot of women out there or partners out there who can relate when their partners or husbands or boyfriends have said similar things when they are going through a similar process. But the reality is that this is just a huge part of what our justice system does to men. It absolutely breaks them, and then wonders why male aggression and male suicide rates are so high. In Australia alone, an estimated 41 men commit suicide a week. According to an interview conducted even as far back as 2003, New Zealand social welfare spokesman Dr. Muriel Newman said, according to Australian statistics, males aged 25 to 44 are most at risk of suicide. Research shows that relationship breakdown, exacerbated by experiences with the family law system, have been identified as major trigger factors. Meanwhile, all the feminists and the justice system are over here like, haha, nothing to see here. In researching further into this topic, it also appears that being unable to make child support payments is another huge factor when it comes to men committing suicide. But that is definitely a topic for another video at another time. The point is, these numbers are huge. And there doesn't seem to be any concern whatsoever in addressing a broken system that results in mass male suicide. Cause like, who cares about male issues, am I right? Now fast forward a little bit, and custody battle has finally made its way into court, and it's finally being sorted out, at least in some respects. And then, out of nowhere, he gets hit with some domestic violence allegations. Something I forgot to add initially that might actually be useful information is, these allegations and the custody battle didn't actually come up until he had a new girlfriend. So that's just something to bear in mind. Now, allegedly, those domestic violence charges were changed several times. And eventually, at the instruction of his lawyer, but also because having charges against him directly impacted seeing his kids, pled guilty. In court, ex-wife also read her victim impact statement, which she said that the media could also share. And share they did. But let me say again, this entire time has not been able to talk about this and defend himself. Lastly, and I think quite importantly too, allegedly, the ex-wife also did this to her last partner, where she dragged him into court over a custody battle as well. This is allegedly kind of looking like a pattern of behavior. Allegedly. Something very important also that I want to note is that most of the time, women don't end up paying a cent for taking their ex-partners to court, because of course there are so many support networks for women, and none for men, because the patriarchy. Gee whiz! Is this what equality looks like? I know for a fact that has spent thousands of dollars defending himself, and the most laughable part of all of this, at least to me, is that now has to undertake male behavioral training classes to teach him to stop being a bad man. And I know what you're thinking. That sounds like a joke there, Sydney. But it's not a joke. The court will order that a violent man must go and take these behavioral training classes to, I guess, not be violent anymore. I actually interviewed a guy about 2 years ago who'd taken these classes, even though he'd never actually hit his ex. And basically he said that it's run by crazy feminist overlords who make you admit that you're a bad person and a woman basher. And honestly, that doesn't really shock me. Although perhaps the best part of all of this is that there's absolutely no equivalent program for women. No, really. Is this what equality feels like? So that all being said, it really truly appears like this is not an isolated incident or experience. In fact, it seems like a lot of men across the board can relate to this. But I will say at the front end, for like full disclosure or whatever, that the data on this topic is either outdated, incomplete, or completely contradicts itself. But honestly, what did you expect from a feminist-based issue? The fact is, there are genuine instances where people and children need to be protected from other people. Because violence happens and violence is wrong. That's a no-brainer. But there is a pattern of behavior that appears specific to women, where false accusations of abuse and restraining orders are becoming commonplace in custody battles and divorce proceedings. Because if you can't win, just destroy your ex's life. Gee, equality is fun. At first glance, looking into this topic, you will find scores of web pages offering to help fathers and husbands who are currently going through the court system, or who are fighting false restraining orders or false accusations of domestic violence. Using a restraining order to take away children is in fact a tactic employed during custody disputes. And unfortunately, most of these orders are granted without the accused being present or given the opportunity to defend him or herself. The orders are granted using a preponderance of evidence standard, meaning that there only needs to be a 51% chance that the claims are more likely true than false. These orders are often granted without any proof of physical violence or threats. The accuser needs only allege that they feel threatened, not that they were in fact threatened or assaulted. The result is that children are removed from the accused parent's custody until such time as that parent can get in front of a judge, which often takes months. I'm just thinking out loud, but maybe this is not the best system. Even in the majority of cases, fathers are the primary recipient of restraining orders, 70% of cases to be exact. And in 72% of cases, they are obtained by women against men. The general consensus of this, at least in the United States, is that the majority of these restraining orders that are filed every single year are frivolous and unnecessary. Cheers to justice. Sometimes when I'm looking into these topics, I honestly can't help but sit back and think, this is such a waste of everyone's time. Frickin' feminism. So false restraining orders aside, how common are claims of domestic violence and child abuse in court proceedings? Statistically, it's unclear. Anecdotally, on the other hand, very common. A retiring Australian judge came forward in 2013 and said that false abuse claims are the new court weapon. Allegations of child sexual abuse are being increasingly invented by mothers to stop fathers from seeing their children, says a retiring family court judge. Justice David Collier, retiring from Parramatta Family Court at the end of the month after 14 years on the bench, sees unprecedented hostility infiltrating the family court, and a willingness by parents to use their children to damage one another. When you have heard the evidence, you realize that this is a person who's so determined to win that he or she will say anything. I'm satisfied that a number of people who have appeared before me have known that it is one of the ways of completely shutting husbands out of the child's life. Facts. No-brainer here, but the reason that these claims are made up is because it almost guarantees that custody will be awarded to the mother. A study conducted in 2018 confirms this, stating that many different kinds of allegations can be made in the context of contested divorce and custody proceedings. For example, in the United States, it is estimated that 25 to 50% of child custody disputes involve allegations of domestic violence. Less common but still frequent are reports of vice, mental illness, domestic violence, or sexual assault by one household member or intimate partner against another. On scrutiny, some of these allegations will be true and others will be false. And obviously, this is more or less true for the studies into this topic. But for example, one 2005 study of couples involved in custody disputes found that domestic violence allegations were made in 55% of cases. Of these allegations, 59% could not be substantiated as true. And as always, these numbers will change depending on what study you're looking at, who conducted it, how feministy it is. Finally, a concept that I think a lot of parents need to know exists is the concept of parental alienation syndrome. This is characterized as the deliberate attempt by one parent to distance his or her children from the other parent. The motivation is to destroy the parental bond between his or her children with the other parent. Jokes aside for a second, the reason I think this is important is because a lot of people don't realize that this kind of behavior actually has a name. It's important. Now go Google it. You're welcome. Maybe I should become a family counselor. I'm just kidding. Kids are too loud and snotty. Ultimately, with most topics like this, there are a lot of factors that go into it, and there are parts of this that I haven't discussed in this video. But at the end of the day, through all these proceedings, it's the children who lose out. None of this benefits anyone, especially not your angry, vindictive bickering in a court of law. Stop that. And honestly, this certainly doesn't benefit the fathers who are being forced to go through this court system because of angry, vindictive exes who just want to punish them and ruin their lives. And honestly, if I'm being completely truthful, this makes me feel very sad for everyone involved. As I was researching for this video, I found one description of these proceedings that I felt reflected experience down to the T, which means that it probably reflects a lot of other people's experiences too. Sometimes, parents make up an allegation, and if it is found to be unsubstantiated, they scramble to come up with other allegations, one after the other, thinking that at least one might stick, all causing years of harassment and litigation, not to mention potential job loss, criminal charges, and most importantly, severe mental trauma for the party's children. Many times, the parent against whom these allegations are made cannot afford the legal and expert fees or multiple attorneys it takes to prove his or her innocence. While all of this is going on, the parent may not even have the ability to even talk to the children. What is alarming to us is the level to which some people will go to ensure the other parent will have absolutely no relationship with their children. In the end, so many people have called for an overhaul of this system, from researchers to judges to people in the court system to people going through the court system, because no good parent deserves to suffer simply because an angry ex decides that they must be punished. And that's a fact. And more importantly, if we all actually cared about the welfare of children, like so many feminists and other loud, screamy people like to say they do, then all sides of this would be calling to rectify a justice system that destroys the lives of fathers. So what do you all think? Do you believe that the justice system is inherently geared towards mothers over fathers? What do you make of people making up false allegations and restraining orders in order to win divorce proceedings or custody disputes? And do you inherently believe that maybe, perhaps, it is children who are losing out the most? As always, if you like the video, hit subscribe and the thumbs up button. If you want to leave a comment, feel free to do so. Just be respectful about it. And I will see you guys next time.